Distinguished honor, I have been advised that before anybody else stands here, the distinguished His Excellency, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, should come and open the discussion, and then we can proceed from there. Please welcome Dr. William Samoei Ruto.
It's okay, please, you don't have to stand. Thank you very much, Mwalimu, Professor Munavu, and I want to say that I was a student in Chiromo, where Professor Munavu was our principal of that college. And he can confirm that I was a student. I am equally privileged to stand before my PhD supervisor, Professor Nkanya, who is here. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Kenya Kwanza fraternity to welcome everybody to this discussion. I want to say right from the onset that this is going to be probably the most important discussion going into the future. It's going to be the most important discussion for two reasons. Reason number one is because the greatest enabler of the bottom-up model is education. The second reason why this is probably going to be the most important discussion is because the single most important resource we have as a nation is our human capital. And education is responsible for shaping and sharpening our human capital. In fact, today, the biggest contributor to our GDP in terms of resources that we raise as government is resources that come from our human capital. In fact, the highest foreign exchange earner today in Kenya is our human capital in the diaspora. Diaspora remittance, which is basically our human capital remittance from diaspora, has exceeded coffee, tea, horticulture in terms of the amount of money we raise. And therefore, education, the single most important enabler of our human capital, is the discussion we are having in this auditorium. And that is why it is probably the most important discussion. The third reason why it is the most important discussion is because we have agreed that as a nation, the single most important discussion we are going to have in this election is the economy. And as I have said, the biggest contributor to our economy is our human capital. And the most important enabler of our human capital is education. That is why we isolated education to have a standalone conversation, a standalone symposium, because it is one of the most important sectors that we must shape to the next level. I say so also authoritatively as a former Minister for Higher Education. I know how working on education can change the destiny of a nation. I know, for example, that reorienting and re-engineering our education has enabled 480,000 students today to be in our TVET institutions, as opposed to about 89,000 in 2013. And that has created a human capital that is more focused, with skills, with competencies, that will help us achieve the targets of Vision 2030 and all the other targets we've set out for ourselves as a nation to achieve. My good teacher, Professor Munavu, has said that this discussion we're going to have here is going to be largely about 3 or 4 factors. One is access. How do we improve access? How do we achieve universal access? Number 2, how do we make sure that our education is relevant so that we can use it to tackle the challenges of our time? The shift to TVET was part of that endeavor to make our education relevant to what we need, the kind of human capital we need to be able to achieve what we are looking for. All our other endeavors as a nation in food security, in health, and in all the other spheres in our economy, the kind of human capital we develop will make it that much more easy to achieve those targets. The third issue is affordability. How affordable is our education? How do we make it that much more affordable? How do we make it that much more affordable so that the majority, as we discuss free primary, free secondary, our tertiary institutions, TVETs, and all the other tertiary institutions, all the way to university, how do we make it? How do we fund it? How do we make sure it's affordable for the majority of the citizens of our country? So these are the issues that we want to have a discussion around. Access, relevance, affordability. These are issues we want to have a conversation about so that we can build a human capital that is going to give us the edge, not only to achieve what we have set out to achieve as a nation, but to make sure that that education is internationally competitive and we can have access to opportunities beyond the boundaries of our nation. So I I thought it is important for us to calibrate the kind of discussion we are going to have. And I want to thank the stakeholders that have participated in many meetings that have gone into the meeting we are having here today. As a policy in Kenya Kwanza, we decided that we are not going to write a manifesto in some hotel room or in some conference somewhere. We are going to have a robust engagement. We have collected a lot of views from stakeholders in the many economic fora we have had around the country. We've had views from teachers, from managers of schools, from parents, from students, on what they think about HELP, Higher Education Loans Board, on what they think about the curriculum we're running, on what they think about CBC. We've collected a lot of information, and that information has been processed through the various education-specific sector meetings that have gone into the journey towards us arriving at this final symposia. So, to all of you who have contributed your ideas, you have made suggestions, you have given us ideas, and to thank our technical teams, members, who have committed a lot of time in putting this together voluntarily. Members of WASU, members of CUPET, members of NAT, members of private schools, and many other stakeholders, including our church institutions who are partners in running our education institutions. We have come here finally to have this final conversation, and as Kenya Kwanza, we will be happy to sign a charter with the education sector on agreed parameters on what needs to be done on teachers' shortage, what needs to be done on capitation, what needs to be done on Higher Education Loans Board provision, and all the other areas that we want to engage in as a way of arriving at education being the driver for our economic model, and making sure that bottom-up is enabled by the kind of education that we have. I forgot to mention one last thing, is quality. Accessible, affordable, relevant, and the right quality of education. That's really at the bottom of what we need to discuss, so that we don't get half-baked people at the end of our education chain. We get people with the correct quality education. We are going to have a conversation about competence-based education. I want to say from the onset that the graduation that has taken place from knowledge and exam-based education to now knowledge, competence, skills-based, and value-based education is the right trajectory. So it's very important for us to understand that as Kenya Kwanza, we support the progression from what we had as knowledge and exam-based education only to the new format of knowledge, skills, and competence, as well as value-based education. The conversation we want to have is, we are now 5 years into CBC. UNESCO guidelines gives us the latitude that every 5 years you have to review your education curriculum. And this is the moment. We've had concerns from parents, we've had concerns from teachers, we've concerns from various stakeholders. As Kenya Kwanza, we want to have a robust conversation with the public, with all the stakeholders, so that we can have an education system that where everybody is comfortable, and it leads us to quality, it leads us to relevance, it's also affordable, and it's of good quality. That's really where we want to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am truly happy to participate in this conversation. I think it is the most important conversation, as I have said earlier, and this discussion is now open. I know I cannot claim to be a professional. I know there are so many other professionals who can speak to this, but I can also confirm that I have gone to school. So I have an idea of what it should be. So, and I want to thank my teachers who are here and all the other, I also have people I went with to school, and many other people. I know there is now huge controversy about degrees and this kind of thing, and I think sorting out our education the way we are doing it will actually remove some of the gray areas that have occasioned the kind of challenges we have today of us not knowing who was in school, who was not. And it will also help us to eliminate cases of people saying they went to school, they have no known classmates, they have no known lecturers, and nobody knows what courses they did. So I think it will help us sort out the whole of that, mess. So welcome, good people, to this very important conversation, and I think we can now take it up from there. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.